Hello and welcome to the program Healthy Living on Trust Television. I'm Aisha Salihu. Access to sufficient amount of safe food and drug consumption is key to sustaining life and promoting good health. Foodborne illnesses are usually infectious or toxic in nature and often invisible to the plain eye, caused by bacteria, viruses, parasites or chemical substances entering the body through contaminated food or water. With an estimated 600 million cases of foodborne illnesses annually, according to reports, unsafe food is a threat to human health and economy, proportionately affecting vulnerable and marginalized people, especially women and children population. The National Agency for Food and Drug Administration and Control, NAFDAC, over the past few months have been on a nationwide campaign against the consumption of unsafe food and drugs, cautioning Nigerians on dangers and also clamping down on perpetrators and announcing regulations. Let's take a look at some of the reports on NAFDAC's campaign activities.
Apart from the consumables, NAFDAC is also worried about the use and misuse of bleaching and lightening cream. This formed the discourse at a media sensitization workshop on dangers of bleaching, creams and regulatory control. In collaboration with the Association of Nigeria Health Journalists, NAFDAC says it is taking a holistic look at the cosmetics business.
When people formulate products specifically on order for clients, that is difficult to regulate. It's not put on the shelf, it's just offered to people. So we want people to understand that when you go for a product that has not been subjected to the regulatory review, we cannot speak to what it contains, and we need Nigerians to understand that sometimes those products contain things that could harm you more than you would expect. So you would have long-term damage which could affect your health over time, and we want to make people aware of that. We will be engaging that sector very closely. We've started with the journalists. We will also be engaging those in that sector to make them aware that some things they do could have dangerous implications on the health of Nigerians.
Bleaching creams in Nigeria has increased, especially among women who use it as a form of beautification. According to the agency, statistics by the World Health Organization show that about 77% of Nigerian women use bleaching creams that are dangerous on their skins and other organs, adding that the number is the highest in Africa. While some residents disagree with NAFDAC's position, some are in agreement with the agency. I am not in support of NAFDAC's position in this regard. Why in the first place are the creams allowed to be imported into the country? If the agency is sure of what it is saying, it should have banned the use of the creams in the country. Why is the government collecting taxes from the companies that produce the creams and allow them to operate? I support NAFDAC's position because those that use the creams are not in any way better than the way they were. Changing the color of your skin is not healthy because your skin will resist the cream. I support NAFDAC. NAFDAC is right on the one hand but wrong on the other hand. It is right because the creams are dangerous for our skins and as such, not good to use them. It is wrong because it permits some of the companies, even with registration number, to produce them in Nigeria. The agency, which emphasizes on the health implication of the creams, also says buying the creams negatively impacts on the individual's scarce resources, which should have been channeled to other important things.
Consumption of fruit containing these impurities may cause a lot of danger to the body, number one.
Food and drug are important components for health and living. If not properly handled, they are capable of serious health risks. Now, NAFDAC is flagging off this media sensitization workshop on the dangers of drug hawking and ripening of fruits with carbide in Lagos.
Most of the drugs sold by the illiterate and semi-illiterate drug hawkers are counterfeit. They are substandard and often expired and therefore do not meet the quality. And drug hawkers also constitute serious threat to our national security.
According to 2022 WHO statistics, there is an estimated 600 million cases of foodborne illnesses annually, and an estimated 420,000 people around the world die every year after eating contaminated food. That's preventable death. Perhaps more chilling is the data that children under 5 years of age carry 40% of the foodborne disease burden, with 125,000 deaths every year.
The safety of the foods that we consume and the authenticity of the food is non-negotiable.
Those who are involved in this kind of nefarious activities are going to be apprehended and they will be prosecuted.
The agency is seeking the support of the media as stakeholders in combating the trend. It is hoped that this latest effort by NAFDAC will be effective in eradicating the practice of drug hawking and use of chemical to ripen fruits.
There have been several campaigns against the use of unhealthy oils due to their harmful effects on people. Most of these products reportedly contain high levels of cholesterol, which increases the risk of cardiovascular diseases leading to many deaths. To this end, the National Agency for Food and Drugs Administration and Control, NAFDAC, has expressed optimism that Nigerians will enjoy better food quality and health following the recent gazette of the reviewed Fats, Oil and Food Containing Fats and Oil Regulation 2022 and the Pre-Packaged Food Labeling Regulation 2022. NAFDAC Director General Mojisola Adeyeye will disclose this at a press briefing jointly organized by the agency and the Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, noted that deaths attributable to trans fatty acids in Nigerian foods leading to heart disease, stroke, cancer, diabetes, and chronic lung disease, among others, will now reduce drastically.
We have reviewed the fat and oils regulation and we have a newly gazetted regulation known as Fats, Oils and Food Containing Fat and Oils Regulation 2022.
She also revealed that NAFDAC is already working with partners to find alternative sources to the existing partially hydrogenated oils that are the source of industrially produced trans fatty acids. The Executive Director of Corporate Accountability and Public Participation Africa, CAPA, Akimbode Oluwafemi, said the media must continue to play a key role in educating the public on the content of the regulations.
What NAFDAC is doing is making sure we are safeguarding the health of the nation by now having a labeling that an informed consumer can really understand and check and see.
From the part of the ministry, definitely there will be an overarching policy that is following, that will come up with it. We are also reviewing the national safety, food safety and policy and quality policy.
When I mean a lot, I will also speak to what concerns your ministry, which is the areas of food policy. You mentioned sugar, you mentioned salt, and every other things that we consume.
If these regulations are well implemented and we stop having the wrong oils for the populace to use, the populace will be protected without them even knowing.
The Fats, Oil and Food Containing Fats and Oil Regulation 2022 includes provisions and the scope of application, source of edible fats and oils, vitamin A fortification, additives and impurities. It also covers the labeling of fats and oils products, labeling limits and claims for trans fats and cholesterol, and penalties, among others.
There has been a growing concern among consumers of fruits and vegetables following the discovery that some of the sellers use chemicals to ripen them to make quick sales and maximize profit without minding the health implications of the dangers. Sellers use chemicals such as calcium carbide to unripe mangoes, bananas, apples, pawpaw, tomatoes, and give them out for human consumption. With increasing poor practices in food safety and security in Nigeria, there is a tendency of experiencing severe health complications and outcomes, and massive hospitalizations, death rates from contaminants. Consumption of some of these unsafe fruits, vegetables, and drugs have been linked to causing some cases of cancers. Joining us in the studio is Dr. Chinedu Simeon, who is a radiation and clinical oncologist at the National Hospital and also a lecturer with the University of Abuja. Now, welcome to the program, Doc.
Thank you, Aisha. It's a pleasure meeting you.
Now, we talked about consumption of this unsafe food and how somehow it has spiked the cases of cancers. Could you give a background of how we didn't have much of these cases compared to now?
There's no doubt that cancer, incidence of cancer and mortality of cancer is on increase globally, and Nigeria has its own fair share. Looking at our huge population, we are estimated at almost 206 million people, and this population is expected to grow much more than what we have now. So we are expecting by 2030 it must have at least increased to almost 226 million. So because of that, we have our challenges, and part of that challenges is that as an emerging economy, some practices are seen, especially in some of these low and middle income socioeconomic groups which Nigeria belong. So one of these is unhealthy health practice, in which consumption of some of these food substances are a major challenge because of quest to survive, or those who are at the margin of survival, the quest to make money or to make the ends to meet. So they are now involved in some of this illicit trade and consumption of some food substances that are very, very inimical to the body. So our experience is showing that this quickening or ripening of fruits and vegetables are now on increase, and there is now a growing incidence of cancer as a result of this, because part of the things that cause cancer is what we consume and our lifestyle. So it's very really encouraging that your organization is taking up this challenge and able to inform the general public about the challenges of this consumption and the danger it poses to the general public.
Now, in Africa, the World Health Organization's country representative to Nigeria, who is Mr. Walter Malumbo, said every year Africa records around 1.1 million new cases of cancer, resulting in up to 700,000 deaths. And according to Globacon statistics, in 2020 alone, a staggering 78,899 cancer deaths were recorded in Nigeria. And you did alluded some of these causes of cancer into unsafe consumption of unsafe health practices and also consumption of some of this food and drugs. Now, I'd like to know these chemicals. I mentioned calcium carbide earlier. I'd like to know these chemicals that people now use to ripen fruits and vegetables. What are they initially meant for?
Okay, like what you mentioned, this carbide. You mentioned the carbide. Carbide is usually used for this. Is if you go to some of these people who are doing wedding in some of these shops, iron benders, the welders, and rest of them, is the carbide that they use in terms of getting their system lighting up. Because that when this carbide is mixed with water, it produces gas, and those gas, when it's lighting, it now used to this. We call it octane gas. So you now use for welding. So the ethylene gas. So when we use that carbide, it has been discovered that equally when you pour it on fruits that are very unripe, that it can quicken the ripening. So it is not the only that they are using. They are using other various substances that is beyond the carbide. So, and all these have aggregated in taking away the natural form in which the fruits are ripened. And the essential ingredients that are quite protective in the body being taken away, because this is a natural process whereby the fruits go through stages before they ripe. What this quickening now takes away this natural process, in which case now the carbides and other chemicals are absorbed in the system, and when they are absorbed in the system, they trigger a lot of chain reaction, in which majority of it is a generation of free radicals, and those free radicals is what is actually causing breakdown of cells and immortalizing the cells. And when cells are immortalized, they lead to cancer. So when you now define cancer is purposeless, useless, and uncontrollable growth of cells that has no function to the body. And these cells that are immortalized means that they are now continuously growing. They don't have a limit. Normal cells grow and have a limit and equally die through a process we call apoptosis, a programmed cell death. But this time around, these cells do not stop growing. They continue growing uncontrollably, and they consume body nutrients and leading to wastage and loss of functions and eventually death.
Now, for those who are unsuspecting of some of these fruits and foods or vegetables that have been artificially ripened or quickened, I'd like to know, how do you think one can detect when some of these food items or fruits have been artificially ripened?
Yes, there's no. It's actually a big challenge to know which one is quickened and which one is not quickened, which one that undergo natural process, because those who are involved in this are very smart. So it is going to be very, it's through our security agencies and information that actually going to tell you. So those who are involved in business, we are going to use them as informants to tell you, to help you to distinguish, because you as a novice or who is not involved in the business, if you go there, you will not be able to dictate whether this one is ripened naturally or this one was ripened by using of a chemical. So the thing is that our security agents were able to recruit those who are involved in this business and use them as informants who are now going to help you to detect this one that is ripened by illegal means and those who are ripened by natural process. With that, we're able to trace the source and able to know where are they getting their source of chemicals and who are the suppliers. From there, we're able to break the chains. If you don't break the chain, there's no way you can actually control, because this is something that gives them quick money. Unlike people who are waiting for the food to ripen naturally, the other one gives them what we call a kind of a turnover. So they are not going to easily give up doing that. And there's another thing, another side to the coin, which means that what is the drive of these people who are actually wrapping this fruit? The aim is that most of these fruits are perishable items. And if they don't sell these fruits as quickly as possible, they are going to lose their money. So there will be a need in which government is going to build a kind of a storage facility and be a buyer. So they can buy excess of these fruits from these sellers and store it and retail it in their own price. So thereby they keep the fruits in circulation, at the same time they do not now discourage the farmers from wrapping the fruit, because already they have already buyer. Government is willing to buy from them. They are going to make their money. They can go back, do more, come back. So, and at that point, government have a way of controlling the source, because when you bring food that are quickened and the one that's natural, the government will be able to detect that.
Okay, so I'll come back to safe and better practices. Now, let us go back to the risk factors for cancers, because we're beaming our light on the consumption of some of these unsafe foods and vegetables and drugs leading to cancers. Now, what type of cancers are likely to be the outcomes of these consumptions, and what are the risk factors for identifying them?
Okay, it's almost like it causes almost all different types of cancers, not one in specific, because the reason is that because I'm talking about generating of free radicals. Free radicals, it depends on which particular part of the body the free radicals is now acting. If it's gets to the mostly aerodigestive system that's in the stomach and part of the respiratory tract is mostly involved. But that does not take away the fact that it can involve any part of the body, because the free radicals do not have any particular place where it goes. It goes around the body. So it can cause breast cancer, it can cause stomach cancer, it can cause liver cancer, it can cause ovarian cancer, endometrial cancer, a lot of cancers, cancer of the head and neck. So as far as the free radicals are generated through these chemicals, any cancer can arise from that.
Okay, so now you talked about any type of cancer can arise from some of...
yes, but more common is digestive, that's gastrointestinal cancers.
Okay, so how then are these cancers diagnosed? Because some people may be presenting with some of these symptoms, but then they're not even aware, because we've seen cases where people have had cancers for a long time. That is why we always talk about early detection, right, and diagnosis. But we've had cases where people are not even aware that they're living with cancers, and by the time they're aware of it, it's either they're in stage 2, stage 3, or stage 4, and it's almost like either a 50-50 chance or no chance at all. So I'd like to know how are these cases diagnosed, and how can people get to tell that perhaps, okay, we're presenting with symptoms of cancers and this is what to do about it?
Okay, it depends on the type of cancer that the patient is presenting with, because the presentation differs. The way a patient that has liver cancer, which part of cancer that emanate from consumption of poisoned food, let me call it chemically laced food, like aflatoxins, that when food are stored and some of the moths, or what we call the fungi, act on the food, and they produce some chemicals that gets into the liver and result in liver cancer, or due to consumption of excess alcohol leading to liver cirrhosis, then later hepatocellular carcinoma. So the way the liver cancer is going to present is quite different from where stomach cancer is going to present, or the way the colon cancer is going to present. Colon cancer is cancer of the large intestine, so they present differently. So if we are now picking one, let us look at colon cancer. Colon cancer, majority of cancers is asymptomatic. The presentation is asymptomatic, means there are no symptoms. And that gives us the reason why people should have a kind of health-seeking behavior. From time to time, you now go for routine medical check. The aim is that you want the doctors to screen you of some common cancers. And what are the common cancers, adult cancers in Nigeria? We have the most common is breast cancer. You have the cervical cancer. You have the prostate cancer. You have the liver cancer. You have the colorectal cancer. Then we have the Hodgkin's lymphomas or lymphomas. Then we have equally the cancer that occur in the children, what we call the Burkitt lymphoma and the rest of them. And so, but some of these cancers, because they are common, it then means an adult should from time to time go for screening tests. So for one like colonic cancer, the cancer of the large intestine, there may be just a vague pain. You cannot really actually say this is actually causing, what is actually causing pain. The pain is just, it comes and goes. Then suddenly there's a change in stool pattern. The patient now starts, somehow they may have constipation. The patient doesn't go to the toilet for 1 or 2 days. There's a change. He have been going to the toilet in the morning. Then he now find out he doesn't go till evening, it doesn't even go till after 2 days, and he's eating very well. Then there may be blood in the stool. Then if the cancer is growing big enough, there may be a situation whereby there will be vomiting, or even a change in the stool color. So all these are the things that come along. And patients start experiencing weight loss and loss of appetite. So it's now when the patient gets to the hospital that the doctors now do some series of tests which will involve imaging studies like abdominopelvic CT scan, computed tomography scan, or simple abdominopelvic ultrasound and X-rays and tumor markers and full blood count and liver function tests and rest of them. They can now detect that something is wrong they can equally do two tests, what you call OCOT2 test, which is one of the key tests we do as part of the screening test. So with this, they were able to establish that there's cancer ongoing or a lesion suspicious of cancer. So when they have a suspicion, they can now send the patient for what we call biopsy. It is the biopsy that actually confirms.
Let us look at importation of fruits, especially apples now, that is wax coated, and chemicals are put in a bid to preserve this apple. So what would you say, what can you say about that? Because the apple is imported in Nigeria, it had to pass through some checks. So, and that checks, the NAFDAC and other relevant organizations are going to be there, including our custom, to make sure that the food that being imported actually pass through quality check. Because it has a reducible minimum of the chemical preservative that can be used or acceptable globally and then locally for every society. So it is this. So anyone that is coming, the NAFDAC people are supposed to now do that quality check and able to do qualitative and quantitative analysis on the chemical content of the preservative and to know whether this preservative is something that is tolerable to human consumption or not. With that, they can alert the public, this one is not good for consumption, then they can trap the... Then for our borders, then the customs and the other security agents should make sure that they man our borders very well so that some of these illicit food supplements and vegetables do not come in. Okay. Now, speaking about chemicals that are tolerable, you talked about it earlier. I'd like to know, we're talking about chemicals now, the use of chemicals, and how perhaps some of these chemicals are the ones that are responsible for spiking some of the cancerous cells in the body. But I'd like to know, how do we get to identify the chemicals that are safe, that are tolerable, that should be used in some of these fruits, foods and vegetables and even drugs? Okay, there's something I'm going to tell you. There's nothing you consume that does not have its own side effect. In short, even the food you are taking this morning have a side effect, but you have taken the quantity that you can manage. Then when you go to excess consumption of that food, you find out that you have a problem. You're going to have a problem immediately. So the same thing applies to some of these chemicals that are used for preservative. So when we're talking about tolerability, it means that there's a minimum that can be used, and over some time, which is science-based, is evidence-based, that over some time we have found out that using a particular quantity of this does not lead to any harm to any man. Fine. Just like if you consume any of these supplements and they are in a large quantity, instead of doing the work it's supposed to do, it starts giving you problems. So everything is in a moderation. So it's the duty of the NAFDAC to actually do qualitative and quantitative analysis to know the amount of the preservative that's involved. Thank you so much, Dr. Chinedu Simeon Arua, who is a radiation and clinical oncologist at the National Hospital and also a senior lecturer at the University of Abuja Radiation Medicine Department. And I hope you have gained one or two from what we have discussed on this episode of the program, where we talked about food safety and also the illegitimate use of chemicals to ripen fruits, foods and vegetables, and also for drugs, people who illegitimately sell drugs that are not even prescribed or not even allowed, and they are not the agencies or the people to sell some of these drugs. And that wraps up this episode of the program. But for comments, contributions and suggestions, do well to follow, subscribe, like all of our social media platforms. Join us again on another episode of the program, because this is a continuation, a conversation that is going to continue on this program, Health Living on Trust Television. I'm Aisha Salihu. Thanks for your time.